Hello there folks, welcome back, and today I'm going to answer a question from one of you guys, and it's on a subject I know many of us enjoy, myself probably a little too much, and that is on wristwatches. But also we're incorporating a little bit of James Bond wristwatches here as well. So hopefully there's something here for anybody who enjoys either of those subjects. It's been a little rainy today, so excuses if I can't see my handwriting, it's smudged a little, but the question comes from Tony. Now Tony's asked, or basically tells us that he has, and he's a lucky man, he has the Omega No Time to Die Seamaster, that classic watch, which was worn in the last James Bond film, as we speak right now. He has it on that mesh, it's sort of a Milanese bracelet, and it also came on the NATO strap as well. So a beautiful watch, if I recall, made in titanium, interesting colours on there, got a bit of brown on there, got a bit of gold accents on there. It's a really interesting watch. It's got that, or famously, it has that, the crow's foot, or as I think we call it, the arrow, which is the symbol which indicates that the item is owned by the Ministry of Defence, because obviously James Bond served for the Ministry of Defence. So there's a lot of nice touches on that watch. It's a classic. But what Tony has said, as a James Bond aficionado, it is special to me. I enjoy wearing it very much, but I've admired my Rolex collection, well, and from the beginning, and I have fallen for the black dial Rolex Submariner no date. After trying one on at a Rolex boutique, I have put myself on the wait list, although I know I'm in for a very long wait. Rolex and the Submariner are both, of course, iconic. Remembering my humble beginnings, I would wear one with extreme pride rather than smugness and arrogance. Would you recommend the Sub be added to my collection, or would you want to talk me out of it? Is the Sub different enough from the No Time to Die Omega Seamaster to warrant owning both? What are your thoughts on this? Well, Tony, I have thoughts on this. I don't own the Omega Seamaster, obviously. I can only give you the perspective of somebody who owns and is wearing right now the Rolex Submariner no date, which you actually talk about. And I understand your thought processes around how a watch can serve as a symbol of your achievement in life, as humble beginnings as I come from. And let's be honest, the watches that we're talking about are achievable, aren't they? We're not talking about Patek Philippe's or solid gold Rolex watches. We're talking about a watch which ordinary men, such as you and I've just got an ordinary job. I used to have an ordinary job. Anybody can achieve or can aspire to these. So I think don't worry too much about being too flash. I mean, believe me, I see I was in London for the last weekend, and I saw, and Qatar the week before, I have never seen so many people wearing Rolex watches as I've seen whilst in the Middle East and in London. I mean, I sat next to a guy, in fact, at the Polo the other day, and he was wearing a Rolex all black GMT Master 2. So the watch is called the Black. It was discontinued, I don't know, God, good few years ago now, but it's the all black GMT. It's a rather nice watch. It looks like a Submariner from a distance, actually, because of its coloration. But I mentioned to him, I was wearing Cartier, but I said to him, I like your watch. Of course, as often is the case, boom, this was the floodgates open. And this gentleman then, he had his phone out in 2 minutes and he was flicking through his collection of watches. He had a Submariner black, he had a Daytona, a Wimbledon, a GMT Master 2 Pepsi. And these watches are prolific amongst the community, much more than we ever give them credit for. So don't worry too much about, coming across as too haughty or privileged owning a Rolex. Truth of the matter is, pretty much everybody has got one these days, so it's not quite so bad. You can overcome that obstacle in your mind, just put it like that. It's not too bad. And I agree with you as well. The pride that you can feel in a physical item, sometimes, particularly when you've worked very hard for it, put money aside for it, and you finally achieve that goal and you reduce that item into your possession, it feels like a mountain climbed, doesn't it? I was 48 years of age and I had spent a lifetime loving watches until I was able to put a Rolex on my wrist. And for me, It felt like I'd scrambled to the top of my small peak of Everest. Truth is, it's not that big a deal, but it was to me, and that's the important thing. So getting over that psychological effect in your mind, I hope that puts your mind at ease. So let's talk about the No Time to Die Omega. If you were to buy that watch today, of course still commercially available at Omega, it would cost £9,500. Actually available on the second-hand market. I did a little bit of digging on Chrono24. You could pick that watch up today for about 6,000-ish if you were to go looking for it on the grey market. So, you know, if you're interested in that watch these days, certainly look grey. Definitely somewhere to go to get it a little cheaper. Let the first buyer take the hit for you. But it's a lovely, lovely watch. That titanium, I've handled one. I've been to the Omega store many times. I love the coloration, in fact. I love the bits of brown, the sort of patinaed appearance of the markers and the luminescence in the markers and in the handset, the little gold touches in it. It's got a lot going on. It's too big for me. It's a 42mm watch. I've got a 6.5-inch wrist. It's just got too much chunk for me, but I like the appearance. If they made it smaller, if it was a 38mm watch, actually, I'd be all over it. I think it's a bit steep, mind, at 9,500, but there we go. There we go. What I would say about the No Time to Die watch, which I'm not overly keen on, is that it is, in essence, a construct for the movies, all right? I think at the time when it came out, there was a lot of emphasis made in the fact that Daniel Craig, the actor who used to portray James Bond, had actually been involved in the design process. Of course, he became, as I guess any James Bond will be, a brand ambassador for Omega watches at that time. Who's to know? The next James Bond might be totally different watch on his wrist, because all bets are off. Now that there's a different production company going forward, I imagine all those previous deals are now concluded. It's entirely possible that Omega will not be on the next wrist of the new James Bond actor in the future. Could it be going back to Rolex? Could it be something entirely different? Who is to know? But the No Time to Die Seamaster was, of course, a construct of that movie. It didn't exist until that movie came out. It was special for that movie. So it has a theatrical element to it. You might like that, you might dislike that, but whatever, that is the heritage and the history of that watch. That cinematic connection makes it stand out amongst other watches. Yeah, I really like it. It's a nice piece. But let's compare it perhaps to the other watch you're talking about. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I'm just going to give you some facts and figures here. James Bond was always intended to wear a Rolex watch because, as we all famously know, Ian Fleming wore a Rolex watch. In fact, he wore an Explorer. And he only ever mentioned James Bond in the literary books wearing a Rolex. He never mentioned a model. Many people will make the assumption, therefore, that he was wearing an Explorer like his creator. But of course, because in the movies, we saw Sean Connery, when there were close-ups of his wrist, he was seen to be wearing a Rolex Submariner. Stories exist that, you know, a watch was needed at the time filming was being made. A cameraman or somebody in the production crew actually had that watch on his wrist, handed it to Sean Connery because it seemed appropriate for the scene. That's as much thought went into it back then. Of course, that watch then, whack, it was then laid down in canon as James Bond's watch. We saw Sean Connery wearing that watch into the future. We saw Roger Moore wearing that watch into the future. We saw Tim Dalton. It wasn't until Pierce Brosnan came along that Omega got the checkbook out that we saw Omega squeezing their way into the Bond story. So really and truly, if you're into the heritage of James Bond watches, it's got to be a Rolex. Right? It's got to be a Rolex because that's what he wore in the first movies. That's what Ian Fleming wore. It's the only watch named in the books. So Bond actually is a Rolex man, not an Omega man, contrary to what Omega would like us to believe. The thing that I would say about this watch, which I'm wearing right now, the No Date Submariner, it's got a kind of three perfect things going for it. It's simple. Right? It is a very, very simple watch. When you look at it, there's not a lot going on. Black, in this case, you can get a green one, of course. You can get blue ones if you want to go into precious metal as well. But it's a simple black watch, easy to read. It's a functional tool watch at the end of the day, the same as the Seamaster, but it is functional, easy to read, large hour markers, easy to operate bezel. Hang on, hear that? That beautiful snicking sound as it goes around never fails to please me. Classically elegant, very, very simple. It's got balance. I actually chose the no date Submariner myself. I had the option of having the date version. There were two available, believe it or not, when I bought this watch. Way back in the old days, I had to wait 5 weeks for delivery back then. And I could have had either date or no date. I chose the no date because to my eye, the symmetry is attractive. I have other Rolex watches which have the date, and I'm not a big fan of the Cyclops date magnifier. It dominates the dial. I find it unattractive, and it does impair your ability to read the time as well, considerably. People rarely talk about that. But I thought where there was an opportunity to have no Cyclops, no date, I would go for it. And I do not regret that one iota. I like the symmetry and the balance which comes from this watch. I also like its history, of course. This is potentially, and I say this tongue-in-cheek because others will argue other watches can hold this crown, this is potentially one of the most important wristwatches in the horological watch journey. Because when it was released in the, I think it was like the mid-1950s, it took the world by storm. I mean, there is not a watch brand on this planet which does not today make some form of dive-style watch. And that all traces itself back to the Rolex Submariner, where it begins the journey for men and their fascination with chunky dive watches. And the Submariner began all that. And hence, I believe it has a very special place in the world of wrist-based horology. And to this very day, as you very correctly mentioned, if you want to buy a Submariner today, £8,100 buys you the no-date version, although actually they're more expensive second-hand, unlike that No Time to Die Seamaster, which I said £9,500 to buy a No Time to Die Seamaster, around about £6,000 to £6,500 second-hand. When it comes to the Submariner, you're looking at £8,100 to buy. You can find them around £8,500, often going up to £10,000 depending on their sort of, state, basically, what sort of condition they're in. So they command more money second-hand because of their scarcity than they do brand new. So there's no right or wrong answer here, Tony. You can't go wrong. If you can get hold of a Submariner, and this is a little tip I have for anybody, if you're on any waiting list at any Rolex authorized dealer and you get the call and somebody offers you a Rolex Submariner, don't do what I did and turn one down. I remember I'd put my name down for a couple of Submariners and had a phone call in 1 week. I had two jewelers offer me a Submariner when I just bought one. And I turned down two Submariners, which had I bought them and turned them over, flipped them very quickly, I could have made about £4,000 out of those two Submariners together. About £2,000 a piece. I failed to do that. But what I would say to you, if anybody offers you a brand new Rolex Submariner from an authorized dealer, don't turn it down. It's money in the bank. It's also an amazing wristwatch, which you can't go wrong with. So Tony, if that call comes, take their bloody arm off, mate, right? You cannot turn down a Rolex Submariner. And I have to say, the only downside to a Submariner is once you put it on your wrist with the glide lock bracelet, meaning it's always going to fit perfectly, the classic elegance of the colors, the iconic nature of its styling, you will never want to take it off. Now, I would suggest that the Seamaster, the No Time to Die Seamaster, it's a bit more flamboyant. There's a lot more going on there than the Sub, which is just a monochrome, stainless steel and black watch. Very understated. That No Time to Die Seamaster, boom, there's a lot going on. Fancy bracelet, lots of colors, different materials in use. I mean, you already own it, you love it, it's great. But I think if you get the Sub, you might find yourself wearing that Seamaster a fair amount less. Just my thoughts though. There we go. I hope it's answered your question. I have no doubt there are many of you gentlemen out there who are Omega mad, and you will say, the man's a fool. Who the hell buys a Rolex these days? They're so gauche. They are far less trendy than they have been, and I agree entirely. Prices have fallen off a cliff. Never ever buy a watch as a potential investment. Merely buy it because you enjoy wearing it and you want to put it on your wrist every day. Because those guys who went big into Rolex a few years ago, they're licking their wounds now, that's for sure. Tony, hope it answers your question. You guys out there, now's your opportunity. Ask me a question. I'll be delighted to give you my thoughts and opinions, even if they differ to yours. I invite the conversation in the comments section. Tell me I am wrong. Change my mind. I'd love to hear from you. Until the next time we speak, take care, and I'll see you again very soon.
The sound of your wings leaving me. My soul has been breaking.